And that was Samson's take. My guest this morning, Oliver Bakavomowo, is Constitutional Rights and Policy Strategy Advisor at the Democracy Hub. Suleiman Ibrahima is Executive Director, Media Foundation for West Africa. They did the investigations at the Fourth Estate that led to the expose on the ghost names at the National Service Authority or Secretariat. Sharif Mahmoud Khalid is economist or an economic advisor to the Vice President of the Republic of Ghana. Kamaldeen Abdullahi is Deputy National Communications Director, the New Patriotic Party, and Nanaya Sapong, Daniel Ejay Sapong, is Deputy General Secretary of the newly minted, from movement to momentum, as I call it, UP, United Party, UP+, and he is political assistant to Alan Kweju Shermanting. Gentlemen, good morning, and thank you for making time to be with us on Newsfile.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Great. All right, so let's begin straight away with our preliminary comments on the latest suit filed by the former Chief Justice of the Republic of Ghana, Gertrude Araba Isaba Saki Torkornoo, and commentary has started since yesterday. In excess of 200 pages of documentations and papers filed in the High Court by way of what is known as a judicial review. She's asking very simply that the proceedings of the Pwamang Committee be quashed as invalid because they breached a lot of her rights and the Constitution. Number two, so the proceedings, they should quash it. Number two, the 3 grounds that were set up as recommendation by the Pwamang Committee, which led to her removal from office. They found that she had misconducted herself on 3 grounds. Those 3 grounds should also be quashed. Thirdly, the President issued a warrant for her removal. That warrant should also be quashed. And finally, that there should be a prohibition of the state, the President, Parliament, all of them, they should be prohibited from consideration or any process that will lead to the appointment of a new Chief Justice. Let's begin with Oliver, who has better insights into this Article 146 proceedings.
You know, there are a number of things which we can all concede, which is that we have never in this manner removed a Chief Justice before. And so for me, the issues that she's bringing up are interesting for our democracy, both in terms of constitutional and administrative law. And we have to at least acknowledge the utility of the process that we are going to. What she had shown is that she has decided not to walk away quietly. And that, for me, at least that's commendable, that a person who believes that their rights have been aggrieved would have a framework for where they are challenging that. Now, that said, I am hoping that the way in which we treat this, that we treat it with a lot more sober reflection than outright dismissiveness. That the issues she's going to be bringing up, that her colleagues in the judiciary are not only going to look at the executive posture and say that, well, the executive has already moved on with a new candidate, and for which reason we must ensure that that status quo remains. So she has to get a fair hearing, and I'm hoping that the judiciary is able to afford her that. Administratively, there are questions, for instance, about whether significant findings of fact that were made by the Pwamang Committee can themselves be disturbed by another body, or whether or not that process cannot be challenged in some regard. That's something that will be interesting to find out. I am not certain, in terms of my understanding of how we have done these things previously, whether or not going forward with the appointment of a new person and the process of vetting the person can be stopped. I say this because, first of all, the judiciary must continue to function. And if she is found to have been wrongly removed, there's nothing stopping us from bringing her back in terms of how our law functions. So the mere fact that somebody has been vetted or whatever is done, if a former Chief Justice has not been rightly removed, there's nothing which would say, well, there's a fait accompli, and for which reason we can't bring her back. So that's my thinking. And so I don't particularly understand that relief, but I still believe that some of the questions she's raising, I do hope that, when proved, or if proved, that I'll be interested to see what the court ultimately decides on this. Not only in terms of what is before the High Court, but also some of the issues before the Supreme Court that we are aware of. And we know.
You said you are not sure, but what are you thinking? That the Article 146 process, when it's complete, it is subject to a judicial review by a High Court?
So, in terms of administrative law, it's a quasi-judicial body or judicial body, as you think about it. Its decisions are consistently challengeable. Whether or not it follow proper procedure, whether in terms of administrative justice, it offered her the hearing that she deserved, the manner in which it was offered was consistent with law. These are all issues that are challengeable. Okay? And in connection with that, she's entitled, for instance, and we have said this previously, she's entitled to the report, she's entitled to be able to assess the reasoning, she's entitled to be able to see the facts that were sifted, to see whether or not those facts bear themselves out. All that process, I think, she's entitled to it. Myself, at this point, I think it's a bit premature even for me personally to be able to say that, all of the claims that she's raising are not valid. And even when some of their claims are valid, whether or not they would lead naturally to the invalidation of the work of the committee are also issues that, deserve question. But I think somehow she has not lost faith in the judiciary, and I think perhaps that if there's any value to commend here, that's it, I would say.
Interesting. But I've heard you, often refer to the very first time that Article 146 was used under this dispensation, the 1992 Constitution. And that was in respect of Dr. Jacob Emmanuel Opong, who was removed as a deputy chairperson of the National Commission for Civic Education on the 28th of August 1999. And when he decided to challenge it, he went straight to the Supreme Court and he lost.
Yeah.
Because I have heard you refer to it, what do you say?
Well,
which is the better forum?
So the funny thing about, that decision itself, I'm not even certain that the Supreme Court sufficiently understood the law. Because the Supreme Court had assumed that the Article 146 Committee is a commission of inquiry, and for which its reports must await a period, there must be a white paper, and then, you challenge it in the way in which a report of the commission of inquiry is done. But now we understand, we have better clarity.
Let's educate the people.
Yeah.
A commission of inquiries reports when they do a finding and they finish. It becomes
it's like a judgment of the
High Court.
Yes.
And it's appealable to the Court of Appeal.
Absolutely.
Within 6 months.
Within 6 months.
Okay.
So that's what the Constitution establishes for that framework. There's a real question as to whether or not the Article 146 Committee is equivalent to a commission of inquiry. I don't necessarily hold that view, and I think that subsequent bodies haven't. In fact, Supreme Court decisions also suggest, like for instance, they don't have the power of contempt and things like that, suggesting that we are trying to create a distinction between the 146 Committee and also commissions of inquiry. So that route necessarily would not be the most appropriate route. So even though there's a Supreme Court decision on it, I think that, if you go back and review it, that will have a different opinion on it. So I think the appropriate forum in this case is the High Court, I believe.
Okay.
Because the High Court, and they're invoking the High Court supervisory jurisdiction.
All right.
So I think that's fair in terms of where they've gone.
Okay. Before I come to Prof, let me go to Nana. And Nana Yasapong, already we have heard people who have been very dismissive. I've listened to Professor, I said Professor. We all have come to say Professor because he was our director at the School of Law. Kuku and Sansari. We've heard Eduji Tamaklo and the rest of them. They completely just rubbish everything she has done and say, in the first place, you're in the wrong forum, so just get off. This is done and dusted. You can't make any headway. Kuku and Sansari says this is not a stool where you think it is dead, it is gone, it cannot be revived. From where you sit, what do you say?
Samson, thank you very much. Good morning to my colleagues. As an interim new Deputy General Secretary, I would have to say good morning to my party members and to thank God for their lives. Some traveled all the way from the various regions to witness the unveiling of the.
We'll talk about the UP Plus soon. You know, it's a second important subject.
And my brother Kamal is here, so. Samson, it's an interesting discussion, and I think that Madame Torkornoo has done her best, and just as Oliver had stated, the issues she's raising, though cannot be substantiated or do not have the legal legs to stand on, I think that it would be good for our history, and it would be good for our, you have something you call legal jurisprudence, and for further studies. And so, of course, in as much as I sit here not a legal brain, but I think that there is nothing in there that can be substantiated. But on the other hand, She says, yes.
She says, you have removed me on travel expense, ground one. That travel expense, I didn't get up, go put my hand in our account and pick money. There was judicial secretary, there was finance, department of the judicial, service. All of them came together, and determined that I was entitled to this money, and they gave it to me. Number two, you say, I have transferred judges, or I have transferred people. That is a power I have as the head of the judiciary to transfer people. So what are you talking about? Okay? You say...
Power given you should be used right. There are procedures. On the other hand, Samson, you are a lawyer. You understand this. You are not a thief. I am the thief. I steal. I sell to you or I dash you. You take it. What are you? Yes, she was not responsible to have gone into the coffers to take the money. But can that issue be lined as an act of corruption or an abuse of office? Do you think in any case that the accountant, whosoever was responsible, could have turned down any instruction by the Chief Justice? Not at all. Not in our jurisdiction. You understand me? But the interesting aspect of it is that this is the first time such a petition has traveled the full hall. You understand? And so we are seeing what we are seeing because we are experiencing it for the first time. In any subsequent event, I do not think that we would have the luxury of our executive time to be discussing it because we would have seen it before. And so I understand the, as Antifobe said, the dummy that is being played. But one thing she should understand is that I agree with Anyenini Sarr. It is not a royal stool where she would have to sit on it forever. What has happened has happened. Yes, she would have to go. She has gone. She has to go in peace. And I agree also with Anyenini Sarr when he said that you can do this in another form, in another way. And so that probably the implementers of whatever recommendation that was on the report would agree and probably make you retire peacefully and for lack of a better expression, diligently, and so that you would go home with whatever that you would have to go home with. And then we can move. The judicial service cannot come to a halt because the Chief Justice is taking us to court. No. If I were the president by now, there would be a new Chief Justice in place. I think that we need to move on as a nation. And let us also agree that if we have been able to pin holes in Article 146, then if we are calling for an amendment, we call for an amendment. Let us have a national dialogue on it. Let us discuss if we would have to make it more rigid, then we'll make it more rigid. And then we look at the procedures that are involved. But as it stands, no single clause in that article was breached.
Okay.
And I had stated before, even if any was ever breached, she was the one that breached one when she went to hold a press conference.
Okay. Look, when we go to court on a judicial review, we have three to four main grounds for which we go for a judicial review. And judicial review is for the High Court to supervise, mostly the High Court, but sometimes it can go beyond the High Court, to supervise the realm. So that if an administrative body takes a decision which is wrong, then we'll go to the High Court to test if the decision is actually wrong or it can stand the test of the law. So when we are going, we go over that there's an illegality.
Those are the thresholds, right?
Yes, the grounds. Yeah. There's an illegality that has happened, that a public authority has acted outside of its legal powers or has misunderstood the law. Then we have what we call the Wensbury principle, irrationality, that the decision you take is irrational, is unreasonable, and that no reasonable authority would have made such a decision.
Is Wensbury still relevant?
Yes, it's relevant. We use it. Right. And then 3, procedural impropriety. So she's saying all of these things, that the authority would have failed to follow fair process or that they breach the rules of natural justice. And 4thly, we also will talk about breach of legitimate expectations. So from that background, what do you make?
You're boxing me into a legal academic exercise here. I'll do my best for someone with an elementary law degree.
It was intended to assist you.
Right. So no, that's a very good one. I mean, you really frame it right. But to start off with, Samson, I think the chief or I don't know what the word to use, whether former Chief Justice or...
It's done and dusted, former Chief Justice.
Yes, okay. So that's fine. Former Chief Justice, right, is overplaying her hand in this whole exercise. And as far as I'm concerned, this is a ridiculous bucket list for a Chief Justice or a former Chief Justice with her sought to take to court. Why do I say this? For every public office or an independent public office which she headed, there's something called the dignity and sanctity of the office, which the holder must respect. And I want to believe that she respects that. She's been a judge before, and we know how judges could be upset when a ridiculous bucket list or when lawyers come before them and they are viewed as trolling, hoping that something sticks. It's exactly what she's doing. Will she not be mad at any lawyer who tries to do what she is doing today? So that questions the sort of Chief Justice she was and how she viewed things from a legal lens. That said, this decision taking, the president did not do it arbitrarily. Right? It went through a process to the Council of State. He was bounded by the decision of the Council of State to be taken. It was not a green letter that emanated from the Jubilee House or the Flagstaff House firing the Chief Justice. Due process was followed, with the president taking the decision. I mean, there are people who even think that the president is very lenient on this case. That said, I commend him for having exhausted every avenue. Whilst this was going, she exhausted not only internal judicial landscape in trying to save herself, she went all the way internationally. How many people have the luxury to do this? Or how many had the luxury 8 years ago to do this within the confines of any government? So you look at it all and then you wonder where she's going with all this. That said, no one is even going after her. Whilst the process was ongoing, she enjoyed all her privileges to the extent that she still went with close protection to hold a press conference at the Palms, formerly known as the Holiday Inn. That tells how accommodating the government is. But that doesn't tell her to be outplaying her hand in the way she's doing for, we should respect the institutions we once had. For me, if her review, Nana talked about constitutional issues here. If we feel that an article, it's a bit wobbly and we want to fix it, that doesn't negate the decision that was taken in reference to her going away. We can look at that. If she feels that, okay, you've taken me off, but I want to go home with my entitlement. Fair enough. There's something we can look at. But this ridiculous bucket list, I'm really wondering where she's headed with all of this.
You have repeated ridiculous bucket list.
Mention the issue. You can reiterate the issues.
Bucket list means that...
No, bucket list, yeah?
Okay. Would mean that it doesn't fulfill any of the grounds.
What she went to the courts with.
Okay, I now get that.
Yeah, I feel it's bucket list. Yeah, bucket list. It's very ridiculous.
Right. And again, you have repeated it, so many times. Oliver sitting here.
Yes.
Personal question.
Yes.
Will you take legal advice from him?
Oliver is a qualified lawyer.
Will you take legal advice from him?
If he's a qualified lawyer, I'll take legal advice from him.
It's not if, you know he is.
Yes, so but I have to make it clear that if he is, okay, he is legal. So, I would, but that doesn't mean it's binding on me.
I'm asking you.
I will shop, and that will include Oliver.
Essentially, I'm saying,
yes.
Do you respect his legal brains and how he's able to do his thing?
Well, I'm an intellectual.
Right.
Regardless of his legal brain, I respect his intellect, and I'm happy to engage with it.
You don't think you should be taking a cue from him? You say this is ridiculous. Oliver will not say this is ridiculous.
No, I would.
You heard him.
Yeah.
You say this is a bucket list.
Yes.
And you repeat and derogate.
No, Samson, when I say a ridiculous bucket list, I think probably you have to understand the lens with which I'm coming from. She is a former Chief Justice.
Yes.
And some of the things she's requesting, Oliver himself here, whose mind you are seeking that I respect.
Your commentary.
Yeah.
Is in the line, and I cannot dictate what you say.
Yes.
But your commentary is in the line of comments we have heard, like yesterday.
Yeah.
Someone sits in their office and in their home.
Yeah.
The lawyer involved, you see, it's no mean lawyer.
Yeah.
Okay, and he would have worked with the client, the Chief Justice, who has about 3 decades, practice of the law as a judge also. And they put together in excess of 200 pages of documentation.
Yeah.
And they file in the courtroom. The media goes to see it. Then they bring it, they tell the public about it. They call lawyers who perhaps may not have read 1 page of the document. And they give sweeping, general, commentary that impugns the competence and the integrity of both the lawyer and the former Chief Justice. Do you think that is a fair comment to call this
to make it fair? Yeah, this is a very big platform. To make it fair, let us enumerate for your listeners. You mentioned some of the issues she went to court for. That's why I'm not saying that they are ridiculous in blanket terms. For who she is, rising through the ranks to become Chief Justice. And I mentioned to you that even judges, when you go before them with a list of certain reliefs that you are seeking, and some of them seem very frivolous, they could be mad at you. And you agree with me, you are a practicing lawyer. And I'm saying that in her courts, when she was practicing, if such a list came before her, how would she treat it? And I find some of the things she's asking for ridiculous. For us to have a stalemate and not have a Chief Justice, is that not ridiculous? Tell me if it's not. So if I tag that as a ridiculous bucket list, that's where I see it from that lens. Because the country cannot come to a grant because someone wants to be Chief Justice and no one else should be Chief Justice. That is the lens from which I'm coming from.
She says she's been wrongly removed.
Yes, so we can look at it.
And the removal process, while it was going on,
so now
there are court processes seeking to impeach the process.
So,
and eventually,
and all of those processes went smoothless without any intervention of the state, to the extent that she went international, she went external. Now, let's look at it within the confines of your 4 issues. Illegality, was it illegal? Tick. No.
You say no.
Yes, I mean, with the public, you are a lawyer. Was it illegal in your opinion?
Was the process?
Well, it was a process. Was it illegal? You are a lawyer now, so I'm asking now, take legal advice from you. Was it illegal?
No, the question
now,
about illegality,
right?
It's not that the process put in place to remove her is illegal, but that breach of law happened
within. Yeah, that's nobody saying it's illegal. We understand it. We understand it within that confines. So within that confines, is it illegal, or could that illegality be determined? Right? Does the Wensbury principle apply here? Was there procedural impropriety?
Okay.
Right? The legitimate expiation of her. It's something we can look at. So we are looking at it from these confines and we are ticking the boxes. Tick, tick, tick. So no one is looking at it from a vacuum.
Okay.
And we are constrained by law.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, come on.
Well, something. Very interesting stance here. But let me look at it from a historical background. Samson, you are lawyers, and of course, we are trying to see how we can trace your footsteps. I was told of a case, a popular case in the 60s.
You see, before you start,
yeah.
You see this thing you guys do? You are a lawyer, I'm not a lawyer. No, wait on.
But that's true. But that's a statement of fact.
No, just a second. Just a second. You see, And oftentimes you see the law is not written in Gruni. I speak Gruni. I've heard you greet me in Gruni.
Yes,
it's not
I speak Gruni as well.
Right. So all of us can read and we can discern and make sense of the law.
So at least there's some common sense in law as well.
Thank
at
you.
least.
Thank you.
So that's fine. You see, Samson, I'm taking it from history. And I'm saying that lawyers have always made reference to this, much talked about case in the 60s, titled the Ray Akoto case, okay, which was hinged on human rights, we're told. And lawyers had to advance arguments strongly in court. The court disagreed with them and said the law was the law, listened to the Attorney General's arguments and accepted or upheld same. However, fast forward to other constitutions, legal pundits reasoned that no, the dissenting views held actually, if you like, water. Therefore, we should try to streamline our constitutions going forward, not to infringe on the rights of individuals. Now, if that has happened, and that time, people were like, whatever Kwame Nkrumah did was within the law, even though people had cause to raise, red flags that, look, whatever he was doing was against the human rights of the people, whatever he was doing was not right. But Kwame Nkrumah administration will say, no, we were within the law. Fast forward to where we are today. I listened to Oliver, and coming from where he's coming from as a lawyer, he actually tried as much as possible not to refer to this matter as a frivolous matter. Why? Given the legal connotations that it comes with.
He actually disagrees with those who say that the forum is a wrong forum.
Absolutely. Two, when you gave my good brother a cue, the Wednesbury, with the procedural impropriety, with all this, what gives rise to judicial review? He says we should take, and then conclude here. We cannot do that. Unfortunately, no. The right forum to take, and conclude is the court. And the person to trigger such arguments in the court is the one who feels my rights have actually been trampled upon. In this case, the former CJ or the CJ itself. She's not seeking, you see, with a degree of respect, I'm not speaking for her anyway. But from the sense I get, she's not seeking to say, let me stay put as CJ or no one should be CJ. She's saying, we have framed for ourselves a constitution. We have agreed that there should be a process to remove a CJ. And we all agree that, look, the sanctity of the judiciary is so important to our democracy. Therefore, if there's anything that we find troubling, it is proper we raise it, let legal arguments be advanced, let questions be answered by the court, and then going forward we'll have precedents. That's exactly what this woman is doing. And it could be you, it could be me, anybody else in this country can actually go on that tangent. For me, I have referred to her as a fighter, and I will continue to refer to her as a fighter. Why? She hasn't gone out making noise on radio, shouting to insult anybody. Why am I removed? She says, I have practiced law. I have sat on the bench. Today, I have been handed over with some processes I feel were not too good. Whichever forum that is available to me legally and I have a legal cause to do that, I will pursue same. And that's exactly what she's doing. So for me, Samson, this matter, unfortunately for her, is going to be decided politically. And I will add this, and I'm saying it without any equivocation. The comments of my brother here, that's my second leg. With all respect, it's going to be decided politically. Because let me tell you, there are lots of political, if you like, undertones in this matter. We have had, cases of, Article 146, like you cited, the Pwamang matter, okay, and some other cases as it were. Legally, they've gone to this conclusion and all this. But ask ourselves politically where I come in. How did they start? Prior to even the NDC coming to power, there were those who were on their campaign trails saying that when we come, the Chief Justice will be removed. No basis.
Do you know the gentleman whose petition has led to her removal? Daniel
Fori. I've read a bit about him.
Do you know him?
No.
What have you heard about him?
Well, I know he's a businessman, and I know that
he's very wealthy.
In court.
He's very wealthy.
I know.
He has many cases in the court.
Exactly.
So when the NDC was saying what they said, you just impugned. They were thinking that this man will go to
a large extent,
file a petition.
To a large extent, who are Daniel Ofori's lawyers? Can someone infer from that? To a very large extent, can you make inference from who actually is holding the fort for him?
So your view would be that
maybe
Daniel Ofori is used by NDC lawyers.
Not necessarily. But see, the point I want...
He has hired lawyers.
Yes.
And he's paying the lawyers.
Yes.
And you are saying the lawyers will say, we want you to do this for us.
I am saying...
And then the issues that will be used, where do they get them from?
I'm saying that it will not be out of place for some inferences to be made. That look, this is a known NDC man, NDC lawyer, who is actually vouching for this man or standing in for this man. Somebody could make an inference. But of course, it's not to say that it is not for legal advice. It is for legal advice.
And the committee that also sat on the committee that also sat on the petition, the committee also cannot see that frivolous things are brought in. So they will just, okay, everything. Is that what you're trying to say?
We have had
this was for preliminary comments.
But we have had cases where
this is where
mistakes procedurally.
Okay, thank you. This is where we'll end it.
30 seconds, right?
30 seconds, quickly.
I have schooled in a lot of management, let me put it that way. The most difficult person to manage is one who himself is a manager and thinks he's the best of all managers. Oh. So if Doug would say what he said, it is because lawyers work on the instructions of their clients. And so when the client thinks he's the best of all lawyers and has practiced for a very long time and understands the law and knows that the law is the law.
I disagree.
It's difficult to manage.
It can be so.
Okay, thank you very much. But we have not heard Justice Torkornoo say that she's the best of all lawyers or judges. We'll take a quick break. We will be back. Still in the courtroom, Osei Sibe Entry, former director of the National Service Authority, and Gifty Owari, former deputy director, they are in court. They are facing many charges. How much is involved? Some 653 million Ghana cedis they are said to have stolen. We'll be right back. Come back. This is Newsfile, the most authoritative news analysis platform, and my guest, Oliver Bakavomawo, Suleiman Ibrahima. Did I forget about him? I didn't get his comments on this. Forgive me. Sharif Mahmood Khalid, Kamar Dean Abdullahi, and Nanaya Sopong, who is Deputy General Secretary of the freshly outdoored UP United Party. Yes. Because they have to go to an AGM for them to be confirmed. Right. Suleimana, forgive me what happened earlier. You have a comment or two to make before we proceed to your expose at the National Service Secretariat or authority that has led to the charges that have been preferred? Hello, Sule.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, so maybe just a minute of comment. I think that I would commend the former Chief Justice for her resilience. I think sometimes you listen to people and it's as if this person is like me, who is not a legal person. This is somebody who has risen through the ranks to become the CJ. And so we should give her at least some benefit of doubt in terms of her understanding of what the laws are. And she's not fighting this alone. She's doing so with lawyers. And there was a time I know lawyer Ayikwe Otu represented her, and I should still want to think that he is part of her team. And this is a former Attorney General. And I believe that what is also happening is a way to help strengthen our legal system. If we look at the 2012 election petition, for example, people would say, we told them that they will lose. We told them that they will lose. Yes. In the end, the Supreme Court established that President Mahama won. But let's not forget that in that decision, a lot of recommendations were made, which ended up strengthening our electoral system. So I think it's okay to fight on if you feel your rights have been abused. Now, I think one of the things that I was seriously convinced early on about was this thing about travel allowance. I was asking myself, what could be wrong with this? Until I engaged and somebody asked me to read Article 71 of the Constitution, which talks about, who establishes the salaries, the benefits, the allowances of members of parliament, the Chief Justice, the Commission for Human Rights and Administrative Justice, and so on and so forth. And you read on and on and on and on, and it concludes that these shall be determined by the president through a committee. And then when you read 71.3, it says, for the benefit of doubt, salaries include allowances, benefits, and so on and so forth. So people say, look, the judicial service or whatever have no business in determining whatever the allowances or benefits or whatever it is of the Chief Justice. All that must be determined by, the president. And that is why I believe we have this Yantiamwa Committee, Buenduando Committee, and so on and so forth. And at that point, I was convinced that, well, if that has been the norm, it doesn't make it legal. And therefore, I can understand why the committee may have come up with a determination that, well, that was even a wrong thing to do. So I think that we should support her. We shouldn't write her off. Even if we think that she's abusing the system, that's her understanding. And I believe we need to commend her for her resilience. She could have just, right at the beginning, quietly gone to see the president to say, Mr. President, well, okay, I'll resign so that I'll be entitled to all my benefits and so on and so forth. Because to be sacked means you lose everything. And yet, she was prepared to fight on. I think that is what we need as a country, rather than condemning her and writing her off and all of that. So that would be my comment.
Thank you. So let's continue from your end, because you are responsible for the National Service Authority scandal, where the Fourth Estate did the investigations ahead of the elections and found that there were hundreds and thousands of ghost names. You attempted to make a publication. Then the National Service went to court on your blind side, filed a suit, and then got an injunction against you, so you couldn't publish it. And then, as witty, as wise as you guys are, you outwitted the process. You filed a petition before the special prosecutor, and then on the back of that petition, there was a publication. Then the world got to know that this was the rot alleged that had gone on at the National Service Secretariat. Then subsequently, when the oral team was formed by the president, you then filed a petition again to oral. This is what has now led to the charges that have been filed against the former Deputy Executive Director, Gifty Owaremensa, and Osei Esibe Entry, former Director General of the National Service Secretariat. Help us understand what exactly your investigations were and whether now you are happy that a case has been filed.
Thank you, Samson. Let me start by saying that, well, what has happened is a vindication of the work that was done, because you know that right from the beginning, there were a lot of condemnations. We had people going around, media organizations, saying that the work that had been done was basically lazy journalism, desktop journalism. We didn't do anything extraordinary. There was nothing about what had been revealed and all of that. So I think what is happening, even though yes, it's a legal process, we will wait for the outcome. I think it's a vindication that at least what was done has led to the state, taking it further to probe. And I should also say that the team at the Media Foundation for West Africa is grateful to the Attorney General for the acknowledgement that he made publicly about how the work that was done by the Fourth Estate laid the foundation for the subsequent investigations that were done. essentially, I believe, as the public is aware by now, we did that work, and it took us about 6 months because the work started in sometime in April 2024. And by the time we were done, this was around October. And that was when we then started writing to various people that we needed to talk to, including officials at the National Service Secretariat and now Authority. So we had written to the now, the Director General, his deputies. So that included Madam Gifty Owari and Kweku Ohinijan. We had written to Gibbs to try and get records of payment, and that was about an RTI request. They denied us what we had requested because they said, well, there is some confidentiality clauses between them and National Service Authority. So in the end, we couldn't get the opportunity to talk to these people because they were not willing to speak to us. And it was at that point that we also made it clear to them, well, your non-availability or unwillingness to respond to questions we have wouldn't stop us from publishing. And so we indicated we were going to go ahead. And that was when, they went to court on our blind side. And something we are grateful, for the defense that you continue to put up for us in the courtrooms. So they filed that injunction on our blind side. And as you've narrated, we thought that this was an important story to just allow some flimsy legal processes to get it settled or not published. And so we had to, file petitions to the OSP and subsequently to the oral committee. Essentially, our discoveries were that there were thousands of persons who were on the, NSS database. And we had also established the fact that many of these, and again in thousands, were people who had gone through the payroll. In other words, they had been paid. So initially when we started the whole publication, the backlash was that, oh yes, they could find their names in the database, but what is important is to find out whether they were paid, because the metric app that is being used would ensure that whoever is on the database who ought not to have been there would not go through the process, even at the regional level or at the district level, let alone getting paid. But we had evidence that many, in fact, thousands of these people had been paid because the database at the back end would show whether somebody has been paid or the person has not been paid. So you take somebody's name, the person has been paid, then you look at the database in the system and realize that this is a 90-year-old person. So you ask yourself, but how can a 90-year-old person do national service? Then you look at another person who has been paid, and then you realize this person is 13 or 12 years old. So quite clearly, there were a lot of things happening. And Samson, you are a media person. At some point when people feel you are doing genuine work, they would come on board to help you even uncover more. So at some point, we did have persons who are familiar with the national service system that we could contact to verify, and they would tell us, oh, no, if you have discovered this, then this is what is happening. So it was obvious that millions and millions were being paid annually. And again, what exposed them even more was that when they made a presentation to Parliament, the Parliamentary Committee on Education, they had to then present the actual figures of persons that they are paying. And we looked at it and looked at the numbers for the previous years, and it was obvious that we couldn't have had schools that were graduating, thousands and thousands more students just within a year. Because if you look at 1 year and it is 80,000 people who were enrolled for national service, and the following year you have, let's say, 150,000, how come all of a sudden in 1 year we have a difference of about 70,000 additional students eligible for national service? And so, we were convinced that there were a lot of wrongs that had happened, but eventually we thought that Gibbs, the interbank payment system, also has questions to answer, because and we engaged them. In fact, it was after the engagement that we did a request to ask them to give us the payment data, which they declined. But when we met them, in fact, they assembled their whole management team to brief us about how they engage with the national service payment system. And at that point, their point was that, well, for us, it's garbage in, garbage out. We asked them about this marketplaces system. And they said, well, it is garbage in, garbage out. We don't know who is doing service and who is not doing service. At the end of the month, national service will pass on to us the people that we should pay, and then we just go ahead and pay. But now that we are discovering that sometimes one Eastwich card would receive payments from multiple national service people, which shouldn't be the case, why was Gibbs allowing that? The other question for me, essentially in terms of strengthening institutions, is while all these things were happening for multiple years, the internal auditor at the NSS, what was he or she doing? I don't think that the person can say, oh, well, I was just there in name and earning my salary. If you are an internal auditor, you are privy to the system, you are part of the system, you can audit the system and understand what is happening. So all that while, what was happening? The other point, Samson, is that the AG talks about 653 million in the context of these two people. But what has been lost to the state in terms of the entire national service thing is over 2 billion. Now, we were told earlier that there are some people who have pleaded, to come under plea bargain, and they will refund monies that perhaps were wrongfully paid to them or they wrongfully, misappropriated. And so perhaps we are only being told about the monies between these two people and not the entire amount that was lost to the state. So, as I said, it's a vindication. It shows that journalism, when done well, can at least help the state to strengthen institutions, to at least fight corruption and, protect the public purse. People would say, well, it is just the beginning of the trial. Yes, it's true, but I don't think anyone would want to stand trial for causing financial loss, charges of stealing, and so on and so forth. Nobody would love that. And so if we have a situation where institutional heads and people responsible for managing our resources would do the right things to avoid at least being prosecuted, it's a way to help save this country. As you and I know, we lose millions, in fact, not millions, actually, billions of cedis to corruption every year. And again, some of the works that we are doing, the previous ones, SML, the ones that are ongoing, even the NLA things that we are fighting on, we've taken up currently, it shows how much the state is losing. And if we were able to save all this, perhaps we wouldn't have a situation where the president would have to travel in and out from time to time, go and have meetings. We talk about foreign direct investments and so on, loan agreements and all. When we have so much resources in our country, the leakage is just too much. And I think the earlier we deal with it, the better for all of us.
Right. So hold on, let me come here into the studio and let me bring on Oliver. And you are one of those who has consistently expressed, concern about the delay or supposed delay or the posture of the oral prosecutions. There were times that almost every day you would ask that oral should make you happy by, throwing up one prosecution or the other. So they've brought 2 more. Are you happy?
Let me just say that. One of the things, first of all, we can agree that the amount of money we are talking about in the context of National Service Authority is frightening, And I agree.
He says the loss is in excess of 2 billion.
I agree with him perfectly that the conversation about what has happened now isn't only a 2 individual problem and then we walk away from. If not, then we have not learned enough systemic lessons from this and how we deal with this cross-board. I actually believe that in any time where there's this mass payment systems, that there's deliberate attempts to corrupt the system to this end. We have heard the former Minister of Gender talk about similar issues within the school feeding program. I don't know whether there's any action that steps that are going to be taken in connection with this. In fact, year in, year out, there are conversations around payments that are made for LEAP, which is poverty alleviation, and in terms of individuals and ghost names that are inserted in the process as well. So there are bigger problems that we need to audit more generally. But also, in connection with this, it is, even if you take the figures that two people have been charged with, it is unbelievable that we would say that two individuals were able to steal over $60 million from the Republic, and it's just them. And that there's nothing system-wide that we need to be able to have a conversation with. Further, I am concerned, and even though, we have to, and I'm a friend of the Fourth Estate, continue to pat the back of the Fourth Estate on this, I don't remember a time when the state's own investigative agencies have been able to unravel a scheme of this regard. It is insufficient for me to say that, a couple of journalists themselves, just by asking questions, by writing to people to give us documents which the state itself can get without going through, there's a complete disinterest in state institutions giving information. The RTI process is deliberately frustrated when information is being sought across board, that the state is unable to unravel anything consistently. Then there's a question of, in this particular case, I would be surprised that there's not an enterprise framework to it. We know that the basic way in which our political system functions and fundings of the political parties is through these kinds of schemes. While officials who have been put in charge of state institutions must find a way of looping money back, either directly through state coffers or through party agents, who then are supposed to finance the political parties. So there are broader questions that we need to be asking to this scheme and how the money was operated and who was at the end of the benefit scheme. That for me is interesting. And even if you're getting into a plea bargain conversation, it shouldn't only be about some of the suppliers then who are saying that they are refunding some of the money back. We have not learnt much. We ought to be able to work with these individuals themselves to understand where 600 million cedis was dissipated to. Because it's not like the money is sitting down. And the lifestyle of this individual has not suggested that he's bought half of the country with 600 million. The money went somewhere. We must, as a country, be interested in that conversation. So that's kind of my feeling about this. Now, in terms of oral itself, I mean, let's just take the committee itself, which is just whistleblowing, people coming forward and providing information like the Fourth Estate has done. And we're talking about over 2,000 cases that all require independent and rigorous investigation. My challenge with oral is not that I have any doubt about the commitment of the Attorney General Anyenini or the Deputy Attorney General Justice Remsai to lead this, but that I don't think that the institutional capacity to be able to properly investigate these things and to prosecute the wealth of cases we're talking about have been put in place. I don't think that we can just rely on the system as it exists now and as it's functioning now to be able to get us there. There's a lot more that has to be brought in place. And even as we're talking about the criminal aspect as well, I'm not seeing the civil department of the Attorney Generals also going and pursuing significant recoveries. So that's the frustration that I continue to have about, perhaps I was believing that when we're talking about oral, then it's a holistic scale that we're going to descend on crime and not one piecemeal case at a time. So perhaps that's where my overall frustration is. But
you have your fears that whilst we are pursuing the criminal process, the individuals, putting them in court, there will be dissipation and concealment of the loot,
absolutely,
allegedly.
Absolutely.
And so there should be a two-pronged approach.
Yes,
explain that.
So in terms of these kinds of crime, where money is being taken from the states, there has to be chains of money laundering activities that are going on in trying to make the money disappear, whether through the regular banking system or outside of the banking system. Now, if you take what happened, for instance, in the banking sector cleanup, you then have somebody then who is put in place to find us where the money went.
Right.
In the same process, in many jurisdictions.
And that was a receiver.
Yes, that's a receiver. In many jurisdictions, the Department of Justice, for instance, in the US, is not only concerned about individual liability, but also about retrieving white-collar crime and white-collar money and how it is being dissipated and who is taken where, in which jurisdictions they have been transferred, working with other banks in other countries to be able to get that money back, whether it's in the Barbados, the Bahamas, all those pieces of how the money is moving about has not kind of been put in place. And there's no civil conversation about those recovery systems. So the conversation we are getting about recovery is that in terms of certain individuals, they then will volunteer and say, okay, I'll bring back X. And so, listen. But when you put in place a system that is tracing funds, it better informs you as to how these monies even disappear. And how they are then put into, because there's significant breach of banking regulations if they're going through the banking system. And if they're not going through the banking system, in what other forms? I have heard even talk about people who are buying gold and then transporting this gold out. So this is transnational crime in itself that we have not even equipped ourselves to be able to facilitate and understand. One of the things that I have said in this connection is that it is true that our Attorney General's department are not sophisticated or have not been able to show prosecution of white-collar crime in generally. But we have not brought in other experts who are leading training, who are bringing more young lawyers, prosecutors, who are showing us how to build that capacity progressively. So that's a concern. It's like taking the police department and saying that, okay, you're supposed to investigate murder, but then we have not built a capacity as to how the forensic science, how you're able to dash for fingerprints, how you're able to do DNA testing. All of that means that there's a host of crime that you would never be able to prosecute. And it's sad that one of the victims of that incapacity is the journalist, what's his name again? Ahmed Swale. That because we haven't built capacity, and the entirety of how we investigate is relying on one confession or the other, so that we are not then be able to equip the state in the long run in terms of how crime is becoming more complex.
The other suspect in respect of his case, who was also put in court at the start of the year, has also been released.
And that's an individual that I hope sues the state, because from the beginning when he was arrested, and then you are pushing the courts to continue to detain the individual, you must have something beyond, just mere suspicion, which is making you continue to push. You can't tell me that after how many years of investigation, when you say you have gotten a suspect, then there's something to work with. And it cannot just be that we want an individual to assist with investigation.
You talk about following the money, and the state got the Auditor General to do an audit. And as we know it, the audit revealed, in respect of the former Director General, the audit revealed in one situation, he alone pocketed in excess of 8 million. That's 8.4 million. So your view is that we should be looking for that money immediately.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I have followed some of the investigations that the Fourth Estate has done, and some of the information perhaps that is not necessarily in the public, that we know that some of this money went into political campaign financing. We know that in certain constituencies, people were being given money, that the state was the one providing money, and this was the money that was coming from some of the money that was coming out of this. So if we are really interested in having that holistic conversation in terms of where the money went, it will tell us a lot more than we are willing to get into. Because if the Auditor General is saying that the individual who has been charged with over 600 million, pocketed 8.4, that's over 500 million that we haven't gotten answers for. So that's kind of my sentiment on that.
Dr. Khalid, he has one frustration about the capacity of the state to do some of the things that mere ordinary journalists are able to do. And in this Fourth Estate investigation, it is not that they did what my good friend, I like to joke about what he says, I catch you journalism. But it is information that's available. They use the right to information, law. And they say, give me information about this, give me information about this. All they do is that they now pour over the information. Then they look inside and find some of these things. The state, which has all this information, didn't know this, couldn't have discovered all of this. It takes journalists. And I'll tell you what, when eventually they announced to publish, and the National Services Authority went to court with an ex parte injunction, and the judge granted it. My firm represents the Fourth Estate. So when they brought the matters to my attention, I said, but how could the judge see all of this and so grant an ex parte injunction? I was livid. Then we filed the processes and appeared before the court. And I said, well, you can't blame the judge. This is ex parte. They are allowed to do these processes, so they granted. But as we speak now, the entire case was gone once we appeared once. The state's capacity. Do you trust that this process will lead us to getting the money?
Well, I mean, why not? Because, I mean, we talk about capacity or logistical constraint when it comes to issues of following the money, right, which is a very important conundrum. As an accounting and finance practitioner, I've been taught even undergraduates who go on to lead in top 4 accounting firms like KPMG, EY, and the likes. They are taught in ways to trace money to offshore accounts among, other places where money could be hidden. I don't really see it as one of a lack of capacity, but I see it, where do our best and brightest go to? How have we resourced the Attorney General's office such that bright lawyers like Oliver, already graduating from law school, is eyeing to be there to work? Imagine someone the functionality or have the capacity of Oliver as a young, blue-eyed graduate or legal practitioner at the ages. Right, but often than not, we want to go into private, we want to go into corporate practices. So incentive plays a good role here. But to talk about structures, I mean, I was very surprised. I was working abroad before I returned. I tried to open a bank account. I walked into APSA, said, look, I want a bank account. They said, yeah, fill these forms, blah, blah, blah. I fill the forms. I step out, I get a phone call from APSA. They said, are you the economic advisor to the vice president? I said, yes. Is there anything wrong? You've been flagged as a PEP. So come and answer some few questions. That is the system working. So it tells you there are structures in place because the system already picked me as a PEP. So it tells you that the traceability element could be there.
And PEP is politically exposed person.
Right? So if that could, within a minute, and this was the first week of my appointment, and the system picked it.
They afraid you.
Sorry?
They fear you.
Right, so it makes me, so whatever I'm doing in the setting in of itself, it tells you that, hey, we know you are a politically exposed person, you've opened X account, we see it, we know where you are. So this is what the system does. So we already have the system in place. But now connecting this to the various agencies, Sulemana and Co are a third-party agency. By third party, I mean the third world, civil society. They may get funding to do extra bits of it. But I must say, I commend their research very well. They got some broken taillights, which is maybe looking at the date of birth of a 90-year-old and say, oh yeah, I smell rat. I'm going to follow this. This is what investigations does. And that was a very sophisticated way of looking at it. And I really commend them, and I think that they should continue to do more because that's the relevance of the third sector. That said, it's just about incentive and personnel. You look at my elder brother, Dr. Anyenini, and my own good friend, Dr. Shremsai. Well-exposed lawyers, they understand what they do, and you see how well, I was teasing Justice that just 9 months his wig is changing color because of the kind of work that goes into what is being done. Mm-hmm. But the Attorney General's office is heavy. Then you have a sub-agency, which is IOCO. Again, that's something I would advocate, regardless of government or party coloration, that we need to equip more in terms of remuneration, especially because when you have anti-gov agencies, right, their remuneration and conditions of service has a direct correlation to the output they put out there. FIC is doing a fantastic thing. Try to send $10,000 out of this country. FIC would flag it. Where Chumwafo heads. And he's
Financial Intelligence Center.
It'll be flagged. Right? Try to bring in, there are regulations, very stringent. Right? Sometimes you have your own dollars in the bank, you want to withdraw, and the frustration you even go through, people
but
say.
The former Director General,
yeah,
he was receiving money according to the facts.
Yes.
Through a payment system.
Yes.
As a service personnel.
You see.
For a very long time, and nothing flagged.
I'll tell you what. You see, this is where I have issues with these third-party payment platforms. And with the invention of GIF and others, I thought that, look, it's about time we harmonize this. The NSA is a state entity. Bringing private entities to serve as intermediary for payment platform systems, which has become the new procurement normal for people to make money out of the KGL, the SML, assurance issues are things that the state can do. So imagine they were all going through controller and we have X, even though sometimes we may find ghost names or whatsoever, no system is perfect. Or they were going through a state functional system. That is where you have state entities having a connect with all of this.
You said things the state can do.
Yeah.
But your state has proven over decades that the state is unable, is incapable of managing very, simple businesses. So it is the private sector that comes in, and then suddenly we begin to see that this is a cash cow.
No, Samson, but ballpark, we can do a cost-benefit analysis of the involvement of the private sector in revenue assurance or revenue generation and see whether we've actually made some profits out of it as a state, or we've just given something to a crony or a friend.
What we see are institutions that were debt-ridden. You see, institutions that could not pay salaries, that could not even afford vehicles. And then the private institutions come in, join hands with them, and suddenly they are putting up,
I think that's the picture
edifices that befits,
that's the picture we are
their
painting.
offices.
And I'll make another example and commend an institution, a state institution, which is GRA. From my experience, just going through the system, registering with Senate, etc., etc. When I went to Senate, I said, they don't need any document from me. They just needed my Ghana card number. And within minutes, I got a Senate number. Then I went to GRE. I'm using my own example in Janie to tell you that we have the institutions. GRE tells me they are doing worldwide tax because I needed a tax certificate. So they need to trace any money, even internationally. And they could do. They could do it.
But all these institutions were enabled by private parties.
You see, when you say enabled
at Senate, at GRA, the private partners were the ones.
Yeah, of course, we are not enemies to the private sector. They must exist. Even we bring the big four accounting firms. No one is against anybody because they work in consonance with each other. So, but what we are invariably saying here is this: the cost to which we bring the private sector, especially. I'm more concerned about these revenue assurance platforms. Talk about the marketplace platform, for example, for NSA. What did it yield? Right? Could the state not have done that? Could controller probably not have handled it? Then they know this really comes from that. That's a huge, look, we're talking about 500 to 600 million here. That's roughly, if you depend on the exchange rate, we're talking about $50 to $60 million. We're receiving IMF tranches in bits. Imagine what that could do to augment. In terms of that, Oliver makes a fundamental point. Where do the money go? Lifestyle audit. Very important. Before this, I worked in an agency where I received a gift of more than £50 I have to declare. At the presidency today, as we speak, as part of the ministerial conduct, if you get a gift more than 20K or 20,000 Ghana cedis, you've had to declare it. So these are measures the government is embracing. I understand, as you lawyers would say, that the wheel of justice grinds slowly, right? I can understand Oliver's or appreciate Oliver's ability to put our feet to the fire, but I hope that he also appreciates that some of these things have processes one ought to go in due diligence. He's just made an example of a criminal case where he thinks a guy should even sue the state, right? Of how he was wrongly probably taken through the process. These are some of the things that ought to be avoided when one is dealing with the state. So being a private lawyer and working for the state are two different things altogether, because the cost at which the state make mistakes when it comes to legality, right? It's even a huge wage bill in and of itself, and also has social implications. So I think that moving forward, there's a lot we can do, but Sule and his team are doing a fantastic job. We need them. We need people like Oliver to put our feet to the fire as far as oral is concerned. But Oliver, oral will deliver, and oral is not a machine that has been set out to really go after people without doing the due diligence. When we came into power, President Mahama quickly appointed a committee that included a former Auditor General, a former investigative journalist, all of whom brought their skill together, right? Handed over a report. The report is there. It's been submitted to the Attorney General, and the AG is going after. This falls under one of the umbrellas. So it's not that we can simultaneously execute these and come to drop indictment at the same time. They take a process, and it's a piecemeal. So we are assuring the good people of Ghana, giving us a 4-year mandate, I believe in the efficacies and competent skills of Justice Sramsai and my own elder brother, Dr. Anyenini, to do a fantastic job at this. Right. So we give you the assurance.
You mentioned the marketplace platform that they had at the place. In the facts of the case, the brief facts, paragraph 2, the prosecutors say the NSA established the marketplace platform to alleviate the financial burden of national service personnel who are posted to a variety of sectors under the authority. This online platform allows the National Service personnel to apply for loans and purchase products on hire purchase. Consequently, the NSA registered a limited number of entities as merchants or vendors on the platform to offer these services to the service personnel. The vendors who rendered the services are paid by monthly deductions from the National Service personnel's allowance at source until the item purchase or loan amount received by the personnel are completely paid for. As Deputy Executive Director, the accused person was responsible for the oversight of the Finance, Audit and Procurement Department. She was solely responsible for the approval of merchants onto the NSA marketplace, in addition to overseeing the general administration of the NSA. So when they look at all of this and the Blocks of Life consult that was brought in, and comments
very interesting names
about links to her relations, her husband or her mother, and all of these things. Her attempt to take a loan from the bank, and the bank had to say, we can't give you so much, and so on and so forth. Do you realize that this, if it is proven, will be very commonplace in public institutions, where people who are in charge of finances try to use the state's money or people's money? Why do you even want to help people to purchase items when all they are taking at the end of the month is how much? 700 and something cedis.
You know, you and Oliver are talking about efficacies of state institutions, and that brings us to this. Right. It's reckless. It's reckless. How long is national service? 9 months to a year. Right? It can't qualify for any credit ratings framework for a loan facility. So for anyone to supervise over that, it's a reckless manager. Now to talk about it, we talk about private participation. Are these the sort of participations? Right? What does a national service person need a loan for? When the allowances are meant to get them facilitate the process after which they move to the job market or to become entrepreneurs or move on from there. You, as head of the agency, thinks that they need loans to purchase television sets or whatever it is, or whatever luxuries of life. The national service process is not a luxury. It's a learning process. It's part of your education and indoctrination to be a good citizen of this country. Then you've been put there to help. And you now go bring a private sector to say, look, but it defies any economic logic and finance logic that, look, 9 months to a year of someone leaving school who hasn't earned a living, right, that allowance qualifies within any credit ratings framework for a loan facility. That said, again, in terms of institutional strengthening, what did the board ratify this? The board of the National Service. This is where we need to ask questions of corporate governance when it comes to the board. Now, apart from the board, so did it go to the board? If they did, we need to ask the board questions. Apart from the board, the supervising ministry, which agency? Was it under the youth ministry? What did the youth minister have to say? Or what was the meat of whatever decision that was taken or memo that was taken to the youth minister to agree for such a thing to be done? Oliver mentions about where the money goes, where I was coming to. Again, I talk about lifestyle audits. We're here when we were talking about people welding Richard Mille watches, etc., etc. We know how much they cost. And the functionality of society in and of itself. I was surprised. You know, they say when you are, accused of something, right, you must, the law says that you are guilty. You are not guilty until proven otherwise, isn't it?
That's right.
Right. So, but if I were here, given the circumstances around me, I wouldn't even go to contest for a GFA role. Right. And I thought that the GFA would have also said, look, given what is around, can you, maybe this is a debate for lawyers to come in or whatever to say it's her right to be elected to any office. But I thought that if prudent management and we'll build the kind of society we are building, you recuse yourself for certain things when you have certain allegations before you and at the right time you come back. Which is why the culture of resignation sometimes.
We do that in London, not here.
Well, which is why
you are coming from London.
Which is why sometimes the culture of resignation is seen as healthy.
A whole what's her name? Reina.
Yeah.
In the UK.
Yes.
A whole deputy. Angela Rayner.
Angela Rayner, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Had to step down.
Yeah.
Deputy Prime Minister had to step down, resign.
Yes.
Over some small impropriety over tax.
Which was discretionary.
Underpayment.
Underpayment. So these things happen. So I think that there's a long way to go. We want people like Suleimana to still do their work effectively. You as a journalist, Oliver.
And And many in our public place can't see. Is it that they can't see more? They just ignore conflict of interest.
That's why I said there's a ministerial code. Have you seen the latest ministerial code?
It's not the first code.
You need to have a supervisor of that ministerial code. That's an important thing.
It's something we need. It's recommendations. We're talking about.
So once again, let me come to Nana.
Yeah.
And Nana, I'm reading portions of the brief facts again. It says, as Deputy Executive Director, she was responsible for the oversight of the Finance, Audit and Procurement Department. She was solely responsible for the approval of merchants onto the NSA marketplace, in addition to overseeing the general administration of the NSA. 5, I'm reading up to 8. Sometime in February 2025, the National Intelligence Bureau, upon receiving intelligence, initiated investigations into alleged acts of ghost names, stealing, corruption, and money laundering by certain NSA staff. The investigation revealed that between February 2022 and March 2024, the accused approached officials of the Agricultural Development Bank and informed them that the NSA has signed an agreement with her company. Take note of that. The NSA has signed an agreement with her company. She gives your worry her company. Blocks of Life Consult to sell products on hire purchase to national service personnel. She claimed that she required a loan of 78, how much is that? 78 million to support the business. 6, Blocks of Life Consult Limited is a private limited company registered in the year 2016 and owned by one Paul Boateng. The accused, in order to facilitate her criminal activities, took control of the company through one Muhammad and made George Annan her mother's driver, one of the company's directors. 7, the accused, in a letter dated October 14, 2022, addressed to the head of Consumer Finance Department at ADB, submitted a list of approximately 9,934 ghost names that she generated from the NSA Central Management System. She represented to the bank that she had supplied goods on hire purchase to this 9,000 plus, almost 10,000 ghost names, and wanted to use their allowances as collateral for the facility. Now 8, ADB told her that they could not approve the loan of 78 million, as it would mean they would be deducting the full allowances of the supposed personnel. The accused later agreed with the bank on the principal sum of 31 million and an interest of almost 7 million to be paid through source deduction at a certain amount of the allowance. You think this is difficult for the Attorney General to prove, as we have heard from some commentaries?
Samson, interestingly, if not for persons like Oliver and other lawyers like you who would make noise, and the Attorney General gives me an opportunity, we would have to build a new one somewhere. This is an organized crime. This is a well-orchestrated but unintelligent organized crime. Number one, the persons who sat on the loans committee at ADB should be picked up. Number two,
they reduced it from 78 to 31 or so.
At least
I've
been a rural banker before, so
okay.
I can speak on credit. When you submit your loan, the procedures, when you apply for a loan, we look at how much you earn. We are not even supposed to give you 50% of your earnings, because we take into consideration other factors. How much you spend in a month, how much probably you should be saving, and all of those factors. So mostly BOG, give or take, they would approve about maybe between 30 to 40%. And if you do the calculations they did, that was about the 50%. So on the surface of it, it was even wrong. Yes, you would have very difficult clients who would tell you that I have other sources of income. But these are national service personnel. What other source of income do they have?
They had bought goods that she has supplied through her company.
Now,
and at the end of the month, almost their entire allowance was going to pay the...
Of course. I mean, Doc was saying something, and I've been a beneficiary of this NSS loan. So to wipe it off, Doc, I beg you. Because when I was going to do my national service, I didn't have a television, I didn't have a mattress, I had nothing. And I was being posted from Tamale to Abisim in the Bono area. I went with my backpack, you understand. My dad says, oh, Kobobra, you get it. So he gave me what he would give me. And instead of me using it to buy the few things, I also pocketed it. Because I understood that there would be an opportunity for me to get mattress and a TV, and they would be deducted at the end of the month. It was an interesting moment. But at the time, I was paying, I think, 90 cedis or so a month. And that was less than 40% or so of my earnings. You get it. But, Samson, if indeed there was an internal auditor at the NSS, the entire internal audit department should be picked up. Those that manage the data at the back end, whether NSS mainstream or their private sector organization, they should have some questions to answer. What do we mean by managing data back end, and you know the persons you are dealing with, and you see a 90-year-old person doing national service, and you cannot question NSS and say that this is a data on our system and the person is 90 years or the person is 11 years and that we cannot manage this data? How difficult is it to say? But Samson, let's take into consideration the criminal triangle. We have the opportunity, we have the ability, and we have the desire. Her role gave her every opportunity to commit this crime. The ability aspect of it is where the ADB and the others came into support. She couldn't have done it alone. She couldn't have spent this money alone. There are other beneficiaries. There are other people who give her that motivation to say that, go and do it, nothing is going to happen. How did she even gather I almost said the balls, to walk into ADB to say that she needs 70 million without thinking otherwise, that there is something, as you said, called conflict of interest? It means she had some backing. Free advice. They should audit every single account of these individuals involved and trace all financial transactions.
What are you insinuating?
Looking at the persons involved, do you think they can spend this 650 million?
What are you insinuating?
And the time frame within which this crime was committed, if you look at the data that was presented, the ones we got from the Select Committee on Parliament, between 2023, the end of 2023 to the election year, the money's quadrupled. Where did it go? These are questions that need to be answered. These persons didn't commit this crime alone. By now, their assets should be frozen. By now, all assets should be frozen. And we need to take this seriously. You see, Samson, if we are not careful as a nation, we would continue to swim in corruption and think we are fighting it. Let me take you to the Great Transformational Plan. Just 2 points. The cluster that deals with governance, we have a pillar that deals with corruption. And it says that demonstrate a leadership of personal integrity and political will to fight corruption and take decisive actions against politically exposed persons, like my brother here, involved in corruption-related activities. That doesn't mean you are involved in corruption. I mean, you are a politically exposed person.
You are too, you know.
Some way, somehow.
Yeah, you are now a deputy general secretary.
Samson, leadership. And if you look at those that committed or are involved, these are individuals who were to lead institutions. What were they doing before? The last one I would read, it says, amend existing asset declaration rules to strengthen disclosure and introduce new forms of asset tracking and recovery, including but not limited to instruments such as lifestyle audit, to explain the kind of life and wealth people get. You can't have somebody occupy a state institution, lead a state agency, and within a twinkle of an eye, the person is already driving luxurious cars. And it's as if it's a competition. You see somebody doing his own business, and over 20 years, the person does not even have a V8 and a house over his head, a roof over his head, and you'd find a young person who has been given an opportunity to serve this country, and within 2-3 months, the person is already owning a fleet of cars. Lifestyle audit. Would you not be surprised, Samson, if we meet on the plane again and I'm seated in the first class? Well, let's be honest. We need not play. And kudos to your colleague, Sule. Samson, you see the structure. One, the infrastructure. These are two different things. The structure and the infrastructure is something we need to build. We have everything it takes as a country. What we lack is that bold leadership to enforce these laws and these procedures. How many years does it take to build capacity? If indeed we want to build capacity, and we have the political will to build capacity. How many years does it take for technical and intellectual transfer of knowledge? And so you would have GRA who would subcontract a particular private organization for over 30 years. 10 years, they sign on to that contract.
Did I hear you say that finding a platform or a means to give loans, advance loans to national service persons is a good thing because you benefited from it when you were doing your national service? Because this is what has brought them into trouble.
This is what has brought, you see, it is not the policy. It is a selfish, greedy, corrupt individual that took advantage of the policy. Samson, we have our brothers and our sisters who cannot afford a television if you tell them to buy one on their own. And so if the person is doing a national service and has the opportunity to get one, and will be deducted some coins.
Wait and take your allowance and use some of it to buy.
10 months.
At national service, what do you need television?
My brother,
During national service.
Okay.
You know what, Nana, when we were growing up in Wa, right, national service people were revered when they came for national service. we would vacate, people would vacate, or the chief of the community would even call and give them accommodation for free.
Teacher training.
Including the service personnel.
Yes.
So our society was built even to absorb them. What happened to all this?
There is nothing wrong with this. This is a fine opportunity for us to own our own.
Kamaldeen.
At very little deductions. I mean, it is done in the US and in UK where you guys were. You understand?
Not for national service.
None of you go to the US and you can buy iPhone or
you build
cash
credit.
If you had the opportunity, if you had the opportunity to head the National Service Authority, will you scrap this thing, helping service personnel to get loans?
We would restructure it.
Because actually, their allowances hardly come on time.
So that was my next point.
Sometimes, and as we speak, I think there are still some allowances in arrears.
Samson,
we 4 months and they have not been paid.
The allowances are a living expense. Buying television and fridges are not part of living expense.
So maybe pay it up front to them rather than get third parties to come and help them purchase items.
That was destructive for the national service process, as far as I'm concerned.
Just a second, let me land. Okay. When you have got an opportunity to get recruited in Western world, sometimes they give you 2 weeks ahead. You understand me? To help motivate you and to use for other things. Those structures can come in here. See, what they do is that some of these administrators and managers use these monies to buy call accounts. Wow. Mm-hmm. They use them to buy call accounts. And these financial institutions...
What does that mean, use them to buy call accounts?
You know, we have investments. And the call accounts, you can call for the money at any time, any second. So they know the money is not theirs. So they find a way, take it out from where it is, go to the bank.
So it is possible that when the allowances are being delayed for 1 month or 2 months, somebody has invested it.
Somebody. That is a fact. You remember
and the system allows that.
There was a time it happened that some district officers and regional managers were sacked, some were even jailed. You remember? Those times when we were doing voluntary service, that we were using the card, the green card, you go and sign and you take your money. They were using those money to buy call accounts, and some were even using it to build houses.
Well, we know of situations until Men's Gold went bust. We didn't know that.
So it means you understand.
We didn't know that. Perhaps even people who are presiding over church money, some of them quickly put it in there to get a quick, So they are facing several charges, causing financial loss, stealing, money laundering, conspiracy to cause all of these things, forgery and matters. Yes, Kamaldeen, let's hear you quickly, and then we'll take a break and return. How do you feel? Did they bring this upon themselves by doing this kind of business within the NSA?
Samson, this matter takes me back to 2015, when we had Alhaji Muhammad Imoru and 34 others before the courts.
He was represented by Yoni Kolendi's firm.
Very well.
And I was also representing some of the people who are accused, about 7 of them.
Similar facts here. Has to do with ghost names.
Yeah.
Has to do with bloating the payroll system to benefit some people. Similar. Then it was about 31,000 people on that. Now it's over 80-something thousand, whatever it is. You see, then I asked myself a question. This systemic thing that we're talking about didn't start today. To what end, is this taking us? Yes.
Have you asked yourself what happened to that prosecution?
That's the point. I don't even know how it ended. That is why I brought it up. I am trying to say that, you see, you have a building when you are driving on that lane, around airport side, called what we call the National Service. That building itself, I believe when valuers value it, may not get close to the amount of money we're talking about today. You understand? But yet, wait a minute. Yes, sir. Yet we are told such monies belonging to the state goes down the drain. I think it's so sad and it's so pathetic. I am not to hold forth for anybody here. I am always of the view that whoever is culpable, whoever has gone against the laws of Ghana, let the law take its course. That is my personal view. And I'm always by it. You see, but the problem I have is the rhetorics in the system. We talk too much in the name of fighting corruption. And you see, when election presents itself, almost every single political party in this country writes in their manifesto the mechanisms to put in place to fight corruption. And in fact, opponents will even have to go extra mile on their campaign platforms to talk loud about how they're going to fight corruption when it comes. I believe that's what gave birth to oral. Now, if you spoke so much, you pointed fingers at people, said a lot of things. When you came, indeed, you said you were going to salvage Ghana. And in salvaging Ghana, oral must be put in place. And that is where myself and Oliver agree. If you have told us and convinced me that I am going to fight the rot in the system, then we repose confidence in you. What we expect of you is to indeed walk the talk. Is that what is happening? For me, in my view, no. We have gone for the low-hanging fruits. To say that, okay, some 2 people are put before the court, therefore we are fighting corruption, we are fighting the rot. And then my brother Khalid will tell you that, look, it is a system. Now when you even look at their week, the week is even fading because so much work there. Really?
But they're not doing well.
No, I disagree with you. If you come to mount the platform and virtually do the case in the public space and convince us that this is what it is, I expected even more. In my view, I expected even more. Don't come again with stories. That's why I said we resort to rhetorics instead of actually doing the fight that we're talking about. Why? I heard Dobilevo, who was a member of ORA, expressing his disappointment on how they are handling it or how things are going, to the extent that he was even questioning whether the persons involved are also wanting or also have the taste or the appetite to do same. You understand? So to what end or how far are we going to fight corruption with some of this? So let's not come to sit here and speak big English, talk about structures, and then move away from the meat of the matter. The meat of the matter is that, look, money has gone down the drain. If money has gone down the drain, prove to us how you're going to retrieve that money. If you came to meet other cases, which was also corruption-related cases, how well are you going to prosecute? Because government is a continuum. But you do not create an atmosphere where somebody will say somewhere and think there's something called selective application of the laws of the state. In one vein, some misappropriation, 60% should be paid and 40% should go down. In the next one, which of course it is not within our party, that one we are going to pursue it. And Suleiman Brema put it right. He said, look, it is not even 600 million I'm talking about. We did the investigation. We are talking close to 2 billion Ghana cedis. And we want to sit here and then, create some atmosphere of everything is fine, we are fighting. Look, if you say there's corruption, that's why I said my position is that whoever is culpable and you have evidence to prove, let the person be hauled before the courts of Ghana to answer questions as it were. And Akufo-Addo, who was the president, even said it. No appointee of my good self should run away from accountability. And if you think you are supposed to account to the people, come and then account. And the government in power, if you also think that somebody is indeed wrong, let the law take its course. But I think that there are many who think that, look, people rode on this corruption, escalation, corruption, talks and all that to power, only to come and then when you look at the complex nature of some cases before you, it is difficult to pursue. Is that what it is? If that is what it is, then I'm afraid for Ghana. Because frankly, we will continue on the tangent of talking and getting nothing or arriving at nothing. That is why I mentioned the Mohammed Imoro case. I don't know how it has ended. Yes, we said some money went down and it was still the same national service. Today we have gone again back to the same national service and it still goes names again. And we are here still talking about it and discussing about it. To what end, we don't know yet. But you see, the next issue about this, whether or not a national service personnel can go in for a loan, it is a discretion. Even if my money is 5 cedis and I want to buy a fridge, and then the seller tells me that, look, I can go into a contract with you for you to give me 3 cedis and then keep your 2 cedis, that is your discretion. For me, I don't see how that is legally wrong, in my view. I don't see how that is.
It's legally wrong.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. I'm trying to say that
for national service manager to facilitate loans for service personnel.
Samson raised the issue about conflict of interest. That's where I will say put with him, and I will agree with him. Where when you are entrusted with a job as an administrator, and then you want to profit from it, that one I have a problem with it. But of course, if there is a genuine company to engage national service personnel, whether they are earning 500 or 100 or 200 cities, and they decided to go on, that is
outside the
I am saying
service
that
mandate.
if you are with me, I'm just saying that
to the bank and take a
if
loan,
you are with
but
me,
the
I'm saying
national
that
should not be facilitated.
No, listen to what I'm saying. I'm saying if you are with me, I'm saying the conflict of interest will arise and maybe should, if it's traced to them
it is not about
as a family for what
it's about getting disrupted with the mandate of national service.
Khalid, please.
Check the formation
I was very quiet here when you were making your submission.
You were trying to make it look like we are misleading by saying this.
No, I have not. I have not.
We are doing it within managerial mandate.
My good brother. What I'm saying is that every single person with capacity to enter into contract today has the right to purchase whatever he wants to purchase.
If you walk to the bank or the market.
Where I have a problem is where, indeed, we are going to use state machinery. Okay? It happens anyway. When you go to controller deduct from source people who buy goods.
And they have long service salary.
I'm saying that.
Not 9 months.
Yeah. But I'm saying maybe we'll have to look at the policy.
Employed.
But I'm not in defense of some of these things. What I'm saying here is that if you are supposed to be in a position of trust, and that position ought to be used properly, and then be careful about conflict of interest and be careful about people thinking that you want to outwit people with a position, then of course you should be careful, as it were. That's why I said that, look, whoever is culpable, whoever is held, whether yesterday or today, we want the betterment of Ghana. We should not narrow the discourse to what is happening today. We should expand it. And crime has no expiry date.
Correct.
Get anybody who is involved and let us know that that institution is sick. Because whoever came yesterday did same. Whoever is there today is doing same. Let's not narrow the discourse. And then we should move on. But I think that by and large, Samson, again, I am going to reiterate. If you have told us that some $21.9 billion could be retrieved, do you know how much Beit Khalifas we can build with $21.9 billion? Saudi Arabia wants to build one costing about $5 billion. I believe Ghana would have built about 5 of it or 6 of it.
Is it billion cedis or billion dollars?
That's what they said. All right. 21 billion. You're surprised, right?
No, I'm asking.
No, I'm telling you. The oral told Ghanaians that
potential recoveries.
Yes, we can recover close to $21.9 billion.
Right.
And today we are here struggling to even get proper, if you like, charge sheet against people we purport have actually milked the state.
Right.
I think we should do a lot of
Let me share a few of the messages from our viewers with you, and then we will take a break. When we return, I'll get a quick comment from Oliver or one of you. Then we settle on the matter of the United
Party.
Party.
He's speaking with passion on the gifties issue. I wish he can speak same on Chairman Wuntimi.
Oh, no. Hey, man.
Okay, thank you.
I have just said that whoever is culpable, whoever is wrong, for me that's
right.
Let's go. Let them not take it on. That's what I said. Oh no.
Okay. Now let me share a few of the messages that our viewers have brought in to you. And so this one says that concerning the NSA issue, it will interest you to know that personnel have not been paid and have about 4 to 5 months allowances in arrears for most of the past years. If you check the platform, it indicates pending or processing. What a country. Giving the mega salary or allowance of a personnel, see some national leaders are stealing from them. God have mercy on our leaders. Mercy on our leaders. Okay, thanks for that message. Ken Anku is a lawyer. He says I should correct the repeated use of Ghana card because it's not a Ghana card. If you take your card, what you see is an ECOWAS card. So we should stop the repeated use of Ghana card.
Does the mandate take us to ECOWAS?
Gamel says that about the state institutions not performing their functions. It's these same politicians who create their companies and serve as intermediaries to steal our monies. I tell you, they have all open companies. They have established companies. They are coming to take the money left, right, and center now that the NDC is in charge. Honesty is no more at work. That's from Gamel. Dr. Abuaji says, what will a lifestyle audit do if we do not have the reverse burden of proof in our laws on corruption? And that is the new advocacy that is going on. This one says that, that's from Meraba, right? She says, under Mahama 1, there was NSS scandal, right? Under
That was what I was.
Nanado, we are discussing NSS scandal again. Have we put satellite? We have to, okay, it says we have to put satellite on the NSS this year. Why are they asking the students to re-register? Per the fourth estate, underage and overage people were the basis for their investigations. What about those who are within the age but do not have the qualifications to be there, but because they hold party cards? The political parties do syndicate stealing. That's why we have to stop the political from appointing people. Okay, so when you write the message, read over again and be sure, because sometimes it can be a little clumsy. What law bars me from taking advantage of my national service allowance to buy a few appliances I will need when I am done with service and start life? Really, the issue should be about conflict of interest, and the administrator got involved. That should be where our focus should be. We'll take a break, return to read some of your messages as we look at the from Afrafrantor movement to what do you call it? A momentum on the UP party. But the UP is the MPP's tradition. That's where they come from. And now, Dr. Kabiru Tia is raising an issue that they could actually be going to court to stop Alan Shamanting and his group from using the United Party.
Seriously?
We'll be right back.
That's
Liberation of justice, and this is what we pursue. We pursue it very, very strong. For the first time, hearing that somebody has been withdrawn as an accused person, the third accused, and is being made a witness, and he files it off as of right. But the law says you should have the consent of the judge to do so. Now, I could tell you that it is one of the interesting developments and dramatic moments in this whole thing, because an accused person, I do not know the constitution, has become a prosecution witness. So you could see that the Attorney General is in an indecent haste to rehabilitate the case. Because as a matter of fact, the Attorney General has published to the whole world that the third accused is into money laundering activities with the first and second accused. So what has changed? And guess who signed it? The Attorney General signed this before the court. And the charge sheet says so. So right now, what has changed for the Attorney General to have, if you like, a heel somersault and say that right now, the one that have accused us being involved in money laundering to come and testify against the people. It was charged with. So it's too early to talk about it, but for me, it leaves much to be desired. What informed the lady that today I'm bold to accept what the Attorney General is saying and become a prosecution witness? These are matters that we'll reply into.
Right, and that's Atacha as captured by TV3. He was trying to actually impugn and indict the lady as well. So the lady who worked for Edubuahing and the wife, she has actually not just been withdrawn and been discharged, but she has become a witness for the state against Edubuahing, his wife, and the company. And she tells a story about how she met Edubuahing through the church. They were together in the church, and she was introduced to Edubuahing by their pastor, Pastor Wongam. Edubuahing needed some banking transactions. At the time, she was working with a bank, and then eventually her bank transferred it to Tema. It was too far away from where she lived at or somewhere like that, and therefore she quit and then stayed with Dubois-Hing's business, helping run their business. And a number of companies were incorporated by Dubois-Hing and the wife with her name, Mildred Donko, as a part of the company. They were having board meetings. She was never part of the board meeting. She was never put as an employee of any of the companies, only that at the end of the month she was receiving her monies. And she talks about how she had to do transactions, huge cash of money and so on and so forth. Atachia says, be careful of such a person that was with him, and now you are going to use him against these other people. Some say this suggests there's a weakness in the AG's case. Others say this would be a good strategy. Where do you stand?
I think that this is the most interesting development that has happened in this case in a long time. In every prosecution, I think that these kinds of moves reinforce the prosecution's case and are helpful to your ultimate end goal. So I think from the very beginning, even the indications were already beginning to emerge. One, that she dissociated herself from Atachia representing her, which was smart strategy, I would say. And myself, some individuals.
So it was a build-up.
It was a build-up to where we've gotten to. And I even do think that, if I was even advising them, I don't think that the husband and the wife should share the same counsel. In criminal matters, each individual must stand on their own and have their own representation, because you want to be careful in terms of the extent to which you join your defense strategy. So this was a good thing. I think that any serious observer who reads what has been filed can say that this is a big win for the prosecution, because a lot of times in terms of prosecuting these kinds of offenses, you have a theory of the case, but it is helpful to you when an insider comes up and volunteers information and in fact shares insights, which is what is happening now, that a lot of the things which the AGs would not have been privy to, but for her willingness to talk and aid prosecution in this case. So I think that they would be concerned. I mean, I still sense a resolve to go through to the end of this, but I would be pursuing a plea bargain arrangement in the circumstances of what at least I'm seeing on paper. That you need to at least have a conversation with the AG. And a plea bargain, I know that now plea bargain is suggesting that refund money and go, but plea bargain also means that you're trying to reach an accommodation regarding the sentencing as well.
You are actually convicted.
You are convicted before the court. And I would, on the basis of what has come up again, it has to be tested during cross-examination, but I do think this is a big win for the prosecution.
49 million. Well, let's see how that goes. So that will be it for that subject. Now let's go to the Alan Sherman's new, kid on the block, the new political party, the United Party. They call it the UP Plus. Will it make any inroads, as is being suggested? People like Inus of Husseini believe that this can give the NPP a run for their money. It can lead to the disintegration of the NPP. Those who are not excited will just jump, knowing that they are not running away from too much away from home. They will just jump from one boat to the next, which is still a UP tradition, and the NPP will suffer for it. But will this happen? Asa Asante says that, forget it, this is a mirage. They won't make any inroads. At least he's speaking from the history we have in this country, where breakaways like this have not really mattered, and they have not done well in the elections. I think it was Indum and Guzitano who managed some reasonable votes, up to about 2%. The rest of them, they hardly are able to make 1%. Yes, Nana.
Oh, brother.
The butterfly couldn't fly.
Oh.
Or it was in a formative stage. Now it has matured, and it dies in a UP.
The butterfly is still butterflying. We haven't changed our logo. I think that we haven't changed our stance. I believe in one thing, that yes, your name can change, but you only would have to stand on your principles, your values, and what others would call your ideology. That is what is most important. You understand me? I think that the movement for change was more of a special purpose vehicle that was used in the 2024 presidential elections to present Alan John Kojo Tremantin to Ghanaians as an independent presidential candidate. And having campaigned throughout the country and haven't presented the force, which we did, it was important that we come to stay. We couldn't always be presenting Alan Tremantin or other persons that we did believe in as independent presidential candidates. We needed to form a solid home, and because we had the foundation, we have the structures, we have the men, we have indeed the brains that we are able to put together, the leadership. And as I said earlier in one of my submissions, I said that we do have everything as a country. What we do lack is that leadership that is ready, and is that leadership of integrity, that leadership that is ready to enforce the laws and the rules of our land, that leadership that is incorruptible, that leadership that is forward-thinking, and that would put Ghana first. And Samson, you would testify that if you compare what we have in the Great Transformational Plan, which we did then, and the manifestos of the two political parties that we have, the Great Transformational Plan has an in-depth thinking that is able to put or change and transform Ghana's economical status and to be able to change the governance system that we have in our country. I think you had a copy, you read it.
Of course.
Saw the thinking that went into it. And
I voted for it.
Of course. I mean, and don't be surprised if by next week, as the Deputy General Secretary, I write to you trying to invite you to join my legal team. I mean, it's going to be an interesting moment. Everybody around this table would agree with me that we need a third force in this country. Everybody agrees. Why? Because, see, these two political parties have been in and out of government for close to 36 years. Nothing different has been presented to Ghanaians. Everything that happened in terms of governance, we're going around it. In terms of corruption, we're going around it. In terms of the economy, we're going around it. If they come to understand that there is another force that is coming, and that is coming to lead them, they will do things right.
You're breaking the duopoly.
To break the duopoly. And fortunately for us, we've come at a time where one of the duos is already declining. And so, if we have all of those Ghanaians...
The decline in parliamentary representation cannot be said to represent what the party's base is. Of course, we have been told over and again that they were disenchanted in the last election, but that doesn't mean that in the next election the NPP will not have the numbers.
What is the party's base? They are not able to tell us. None of these political parties is able to tell us their exact registered party members. They talk about sympathizers. And I mean, today I could be a sympathizer, tomorrow I will not be. I am a sympathizer based on values, principles, and ideas. And so if you have a home that has broken values and principles and ideology, then we in the United Party, the UP, as it were, we say we are a centrist party. We take that which is good from the left, we take that which is good from the right, we bring it to the center, and we ensure an absolute implementation, putting Ghana first. Samson, if you look at our vision, we said that we have a vision of making Ghana an economic powerhouse of Africa. We are looking into a vision 2040. That is what we are looking into. You understand me? And if you take our Great Transformational Plan, you would understand where we are coming from. The entire mission of
When I read that plan and the kind of revolution you want to cause,
yes,
it sounds to me like what you can find in an Asian country, not in our democracies of 4 years, So it doesn't give time to be able to do such expansive,
that is why we
change.
talk about leadership. If we have that leadership that is able to put the infrastructure and the structures in place
within 4 years.
Within 4 years. And we are able to put it in motion. No other person that takes over from us would have what it takes to change it. See, I don't know if you've had a copy of the proposals we sent to the Constitutional Review Reform Committee. We are not just talking about economy. We are talking about governance that rallies the economy. So if we are able to put together that structure to hold the economy, Samson, since Ghana would not be as you see it today. I mean, we have CSOs and we have political parties talking about the fight of Galamsey. Tell me in all honesty, which of these have put out a well-scripted, practically oriented solution to the fight of Galamsey? Oliver is here.
Look, we have seen your programs and plans once again, and I took my time to read them, and that's why publicly I said I voted, I endorsed it publicly.
Yes.
Your attempt to fight corruption and all of that. We see nice things on paper. How they translate into reality becomes another matter. But to be able to make some inroads into our political system, you should at least count on at least one MP.
So that is why we formed the UP. We went into this election, the 2024 election, as an independent presidential candidate. We were not able to file for MPs because we ourselves were an independent people. This time we are coming in as a political party to be able to file in every single constituency a candidate.
Wouldn't you be rather strategic? Look for places where you have a little advantage and concentrate your finances rather than spread yourself thin?
As much as we would be strategic, we would want to spread our tentacles. That feel of our presence would be in the next elections.
In the last elections, all the other parties and other candidates contributed or got only 1.8%. So you should be more strategic than wanting to be everywhere.
We got what we got due to the existing structures we have with the Electoral Commission. Samson, we presented a candidate. It took us the heavens to even be able to attend IPAC meetings, for them to accept us to be part of IPAC, because they said we are an independent people. When we went in for our agent cards and accreditation to allow our agents to move from one polling station to the other and all of that, there were some of the constituencies and regions that we never had access to these cards and clearance. Why? Because they said that we were not a political party. So the mindset of even the Electoral Commission as an institution needs to be reset and changed. And that is why we come with the UP and United Party, because we would be calling on every other single smaller party in this country that thinks that there is the need for us to deal with the dues that have handled this nation over 32 to 36 years to come on board, so that we would be able to have access to men like you and Oliver.
What does the history of smaller parties in this country tell you? The PNC used to be strong. In 1996, then they managed some 3%, that was heavy. 2000, then they managed some 2.50%. Then 2004, they declined 1-point-something%. Then Papa Kwesi Ndum came in, very organized party, in the manner you are also beginning to show with the UP or the Movement for Change. First, Papa Kwesi Ndum in CPP made 1.32%. Then on its own, on the PPP, the 0.59% in 2012. Then managed some 1% in 2016. And then, Christian Andrew, the GUM party, 0.85% in 2020. What does that history tell you?
History is history, data is data. We build on them. Samson. Yesterday, you wouldn't have had a smaller party being represented here on your platform. Today, the times have changed. We are presenting to you ideas. We are presenting to you a force. So you have recognized our impact on the socio-political economy of this nation. Am I right?
Even as the movement for change.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah. So time has evolved. So Papa Kosindum had issues yesterday because, yes, he might have had fine structures. He might have had all of that. But maybe even the persons to even help coordinate and to move his PPP had issues.
Okay,
we do
let me get a few.
If you look at
let me get a few views across and come back to you.
Very well.
Kamaldeen.
Yes.
This is trying to steal from the NPP. That's the way you guys are seeing it, particularly as they are going to the roots of your tradition, the UP.
Interesting. I mean, it didn't start from today. Sometime back in April 2008. Mr. Alan Chamantin had cause to have said that he was resigning from the NPP. And our then former chairman, or then Darucha, wrote a statement after a series of meetings with him and the concerns or grievances that he had against the party. Okay, wrote and concluded in threefold. First, Mr. Alan Chamantin, matters that he raised against the party then were not so grave in his view. Two, some bluff, sort of, against the party was seen. And the third, he had a national interest picture, and he even quoted him when he wrote to him that the national interest to him matters more than the party. That is his belief. And that is the belief of my brothers.
Read that portion so that we
no, it's clear.
Ghanaians are able to
I can read it for you.
I understand that indeed
that is what
Alan has not been thinking
not
today about Ghana.
So look at it. Yeah, I'm saying he's been thinking about, he said the national interest mattered to him most than the MPP. And he was quoted by Darucha in the statement. That's the point I was making. If you want me to still read, I will read.
It's okay. It's okay.
Very good. You see, the point I'm trying to make is that when you subscribe to a political party and its ideologies, try as much as possible to stay put to such ideologies and make suggestions as to how we can ameliorate going forward. But showing, that level of, say, with all respect, sorry about that, showing that level of, say, if it's not about me, then it shouldn't be someone else. I think it's rather unfortunate. However, we are all very mature people.
But now he has moved beyond that. This now it's about a party,
that's the
not
point
about the individual.
So he's gone, we've moved beyond that. We all have decisions to make as adults, as people who are matured. And of course, and I respect Mr. Alan Chamantin to the hilt. I know the kind of person he is, and I know how deep he is, as it were. So he has the right and the discretion to make decisions for himself. This decision is okay. If they have built it, and then we have pundits within the political cycle or political studies who say that, look, this is not going to go anywhere in terms of whether or not it's going to affect the MPP. So me, I agree with them.
You agree with them?
Yes, and I agree with them.
You were as dismissive as you are now, and you saw the results in 2024.
Why?
You had your most abysmal performance.
The results in 2024, if you follow the trajectory of how election goes in Ghana since the inception of our fourth Republican Constitution, you would agree with me that after 8 years of a party in power, okay, the factors of party leaving you is not the only cause. or somebody leaving a party is not the only cause. Okay, economic factors come to play. Internal arrangement in terms of your primaries at polling station, or whatever the parliamentary primaries.
It could be said that the over 30,000 votes that he got may have come to the NPP, and that could have helped.
Well,
in some places, you need just a handful of votes.
John Dramani Mahama was president of Ghana in 2016 and went into the election with the NDC. He lost with over 1 million votes. His Excellency, the Vice President, Dr. Alhaji Mahmoud Bawumia, lost also the election with a difference of 1.7 million. It tells you there's a trajectory. After 8 years, you have that. In 2008, when we had Akufo-Addo leading, obviously we lost again. So I'm saying after 8 years, that psychology of a party staying 8 years in power comes to play. That is there. So one cannot say that because Alan Chiramantin left and the 31,000 that he got is what contributed to our loss. Anyway, but I'm saying, I saw DFP coming out of the NDC, led by the venerable Obeda Samwa, okay, and Bedzeden, who was the then General Secretary also.
Deputy General Secretary.
Deputy General Secretary also. Today he's Member of Parliament for Laura on the ticket of NDC. It didn't go anywhere. I saw Guzitano. It didn't go anywhere. Okay, and some other political parties. I'm saying that yes, the duopoly has come to stay. If you
Guzitano actually made a good showing in the 2000 elections.
Yes.
Because he got 1.2%.
Did that affect the
Charles Rekubrobe made 0.2%.
No, it did that affect the NDC.
It did affect the NDC.
The NDP is gone. Wait a minute.
There was a coalition.
Guzitano came out of the NDC. Yeah. DFP came out of the NDC. The NDP, led by Mrs. Rawlings, came out of the NDC. Where is the NDC now? So sometimes when you look at this and you are going to make some analysis, one will tell you that this will not go anywhere. For me, it is a mere...
So pause there.
The comparison is neither here nor there. And I can see him gleefully trying to compare President Mahamad's 1 million and Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. When the Akufo-Addo had that 1 million plus votes, we were saying this was a record. Today, it's become a convenience for comparison or convenient comparative benchmark. But, that said, you see, all of this my brother is trying to do to make them feel good. The comparisons are neither here nor there. Look, when Obed was leaving the NPP, so the NDC at the time, when he peeled away, and let's say Guzi, who made a significant inroads into that election, we lost the election and we were in power moving. You are in opposition. How do you compare this within that metric of having lost an election in opposition and people peeling away? We were in power, and the disaffection of that allowed a certain coalition where you had the likes of Mal and Issa all sharing the government with you.
Moved away when we were in power.
So now,
not now.
No, we're talking about now again. They've rebranded. It's part of them.
They left long ago,
and they rebranded to UP. So you see, but Samson, it's quite interesting, and it's to have a fair balance. Nana is here, and I don't know. Maybe they went for branding reasons. They went for UP, which I think would even affect the MPP some more. If you look at the political historic genealogy of the MPP, or probably our landscape, the 1957 Avoidance of Discrimination Act, right, BEFT, which said that there should not be any political party that have an affiliation with ethnicity. So it BEFT what was then known as the UP. That was headed by Kofi Abrifa Busia, and this was an amalgamation of the Muslim youth, the Muslim party. Right? You have the GA.
What's the point?
No, what's my point? What do you mean? We're having
He's giving a history.
Well, yes.
Don't pay attention to him. You need to finish quickly for me.
He's running away from the old history. Please go on.
Don't let him distract you.
So we had the Togoland Congress, the Muslim Association Party.
I can give you the list of them.
Yes, the GA Shifomor and the Alo Youth that came together, led by Kwame Abrifa Busia. That birthed the UP, which became the main opposition party at the time. Very formidable until its dissolution in 1964 thereabout. Why am I saying this? That gave a potent force, and the MPP draws its inspiration from UP, the Dankwa Buzia tradition and all of that, that came under the emblem of the UP. That gave it potency. So if today a breakaway faction, Nana sitting here, his DNA is MPP. Alan Chiramantin's DNA is MPP. It is for now. It is just a camp of disaffection.
So this is convenient to tell you they can easily come back home.
No. Well, but by which time your camp is gone.
Oh, well, anyway.
So they are here to cause a disruption and win their party back. So we are saying, let's go for our old identity.
How many in the NDC don't have their DNA in the CPP?
Oh, but when you say that the CPP, I mean, even the NPP have that, because for having a first political party, it means that a lot of DNAs will be broken away from it.
It is possible.
No, the point is, your example of the CPP idea, CPP, right, was the gene that birthed political parties. So the tendency to have that is there.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So you look at all of these that has happened, and until we had a one-party state system. So the branding for me, to which they are coming with, is very potent. And I know Kamaldeen and his team are running scared.
Really?
You are running scared.
Oh, no.
Right? If you face the reality.
No.
To go after. I mean, Kabiru just texted that they are going to go to court. Have you guys pretended the UP?
No, or
they could go to court?
We will come to
for
that.
the next-
Okay.
So it tells you.
Let's hear Oliver quickly.
It's not the
They are a
party.
formidable
It's not the
force,
party.
Okay.
right, internally to disrupt the current MPP. But can they be a third force? I doubt.
You doubt that. Yes.
And I see them returning possibly.
Yes, Oliver, you have been preaching and yearning for third forces because the duopoly have they've not done as good.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, historically, after the Cold War, perhaps Ghana and the US are the only countries where the main political parties have continued to remain in place. Across the continent, in Africa and Europe, even in the UK now, where you're seeing the Conservatives and Labour going down for reform and the Greens coming up, it shows that there's a changing dynamic where, the old guard is changing across the continent. So it's an interesting thing. What we have never seen, when you talk about the Nkrumahism in this country, that there are so many Nkrumahist parties that have come up and spread from that ideology. We have never seen that with the UP tradition, where a new entity is coming out from that stock, which is challenging for power. So how far it goes will be interesting. But the question for me is, what constituency is looking to build? I do believe that the vast majority of people in this country tend to be more on the left. It's saying that it is going to consider mobilizing constituencies around the center. Now, I don't know whether there's a clamor generally for centrist ideas in the country, and if that's what it's intending to do, I don't know for sure. But what it can provide, and this is where it perhaps becomes interesting, what it can provide is a real challenge to the MPP itself, because for the first time it's seeing its ideological foundations being challenged by persons who are claiming a certain level of authenticity to it and what it represents. What I was expecting that I was going to see in the last election, I didn't see with the Movement for Change, was being able to focus this campaign within the Akan-dominated areas and perhaps build a constituency out of that would force either the MPP to re-invite them or something. I think perhaps that's what they can still aim for in many respects. So I take your point that they have to be a bit more strategic. Rather than going for the entirety of the country, they have to figure out where it is the message would have the broadest and the most strongest appeal. And if it is building up on some of those folks within the MPP who are disaffected, then there's something that they can do there, I think.
Sule, what can you say in the next 2 minutes? Pardon me, somehow, next time you should be in the studio. Hello, Sule.
Yes, Samson.
Yes.
Well, I think that I agree with those who say that perhaps this will go nowhere. And for a few reasons. One, my conviction is that to be able to break through the duopoly we have, it will require a very energetic, a very inspirational mobilizer, and somebody who is already, well liked by the people, somebody whose, ideas and all of that are, ideas that people really, ideas that resonate with the masses of our people. I think we don't have to forget that when people associated with this movement talks about the duopoly and all of that, and for the last 30-something years, we should remember that Honorable Alan Chemantin is not a stranger to the duopoly. He played a key role in the 8 years of President Kufuor. And people would say, during that period, what did we see? After that period, What has he really done to show that, look, this is
with
somebody...
the party, it is not exactly about him.
Of course. But Samson, even those of us who are just ordinary people, we're trying to do the little that we can in terms of, whatever expertise that we think that we have. I am not saying that Honorable Alan is not, a fantastic person, but what it takes to really break through this, as I said, you must have the energy. Honorable Alan was 70 years, a few weeks ago. And from 70, how much can you really do?
Okay, let's see how much he's able to do. I'm very sorry, but this is where we have to draw the curtains. Program is brought to you by Bank of Africa, as strong as a group and close as a partner, MTN everywhere you go. Ashesi University, educating ethical and entrepreneurial leaders for Africa. Robert & Sons Optical Services, your comprehensive eye care service provider for 33 plus years. My Way Insurance, dial *165# on MTN to join My Way today. Syntex Tanks is strong, it's tough. Activa International Insurance, our clients, our passion. International Facilities Management Association, they are proudly associated with Newsfile. Safari Valley Eco Park, bringing you closer to nature. Valex Lease, your affordable documents management solutions. And my outfits is by Habil's Couture. You can find them at Ajiringano, opposite Villa David Estate. You can call them 0200